A fan broke quarantine to meet her favorite actress, infected her with a disease, and that single evening destroyed the child they would never truly know. A novelist confessed in a courtroom that the most famous story ever told about one star was entirely made up, and the woman they called the greatest actress of her generation tried to jump out of an airplane somewhere over the Pacific. Tonight, the line between Hollywood legend and Hollywood lie is thinner than anyone admitted. Tellegen arrived in Hollywood from Europe carrying the kind of fame most actors only dreamed of. He had been Sarah Bernhardt's leading man on Paris stages and world tours, married opera legend Geraldine Farrar in 1916, and for a while was one of the brightest names in early silent film. Then everything slipped. A fire left permanent damage to his famous face and surgery couldn't fully repair it. By 1931, he had filed for bankruptcy, and the roles had stopped coming entirely. Today, clickbait lists routinely file Tellegen under stars destroyed by syphilis. That is not what happened. Doctors had quietly diagnosed him with cancer, and to spare him, the fear kept the diagnosis from him. Sick, broke, and unaware of what was actually killing him, Tellegen fell into a despair he couldn't climb out of. On the 29th of October 1934, he locked himself in the bathroom of the Cudahy mansion on Vine Street in Hollywood. He shaved, carefully powdered his face, propped old newspaper clippings of himself around the room, photographs from the years when his name still meant something. Then he stabbed himself 7 times with a pair of sewing scissors. It was not syphilis, it was cancer debt, and the particular cruelty of a man who could no longer recognize his own life. Verdict false. The syphilis story is a lie. Wallace Reid was everything Hollywood needed him to be. Tall, handsome, athletic. The studio billed him as the screen's most perfect lover, and the public believed every frame of it. He played race car drivers and swaggering heroes, and the women who filled theaters adored him. Then came the accident nobody planned for. While filming The Valley of the Giants on location near Arcata, California in 1919, the cast's train derailed. Reid was badly hurt. The studio needed him back immediately. A doctor gave him morphine on location to manage the pain. Morphine did not let go of Wallace Reid. In the months and years that followed, he needed more and more just to feel normal. By the early 1920s, the screen's healthiest-looking man was fighting an addiction he couldn't shake. He died in a Los Angeles sanitarium on the 18th of January 1923, at just 31 inches the arms of his wife Dorothy. She made the brave decision to tell the world the truth, and produced an anti-drug film called Human Wreckage that same year, hoping to warn others about what the studio's own doctor had started. He is still listed on syphilis myth lists today. It is still false. Wallace Reid was destroyed by the needle a studio put in his arm. Verdict false. The syphilis story is a lie. Mabel Normand was one of the funniest people in early American film. She starred beside Charlie Chaplin. She directed her own pictures at a time when almost no woman in the industry ever got that chance. Then scandal found her, and it never left. On the night of the 1st of February 1922, director William Desmond Taylor was shot dead in his Los Angeles bungalow. Normand was the last known person to have visited him alive. Though police questioning cleared her, her name appeared in every headline, and the public assumed the worst. Whispers spread about drugs, about a shameful disease, about a life nobody could prove. Here is what was actually happening behind those doors. Normand was dying of tuberculosis, a lung disease, completely unrelated to the murder, to the rumors, to anything the gossip columns ever printed. Her family, her nurses, the people who actually watched her die, all said she was not the addict the papers described. She died of pulmonary tuberculosis on the 23rd of February 1930, at a sanitarium in Monrovia, California at just 36. Reportedly still wondering near the end whether anyone would ever learn who killed William Desmond Taylor. Verdict false. Tuberculosis took Mabel Normand. The syphilis story is a lie. Frances Farmer arrived in Hollywood in 1935 on a 7-year Paramount contract. Director Howard Hawks called her the greatest actress he had ever worked with. In early 1943, a series of alcohol-related arrests began the collapse. On January 14, police broke into her room at the Knickerbocker Hotel on Ivar Avenue, finding her drunk and asleep. A judge sentenced her to 180 days. Her mother obtained legal guardianship and committed her to Western State Hospital in Steilacoom, Washington, where she remained involuntarily until 1950. Now here is the story everyone thinks. They know that while inside Western State, Frances Farmer was given a forced lobotomy. This version spread after a 1978 book, Shadowland, by journalist William Arnold made the claim. The 1982 film Frances, starring Jessica Lange, dramatized it for millions of viewers. Kurt Cobain cited it in interviews. The lobotomy became her defining legacy. But in a 1983 copyright infringement trial, Arnold admitted under oath that he had fabricated the story. A federal judge ruled that portions of his book were fabricated by Arnold from whole cloth. 3 nurses who worked Western State's surgery wards stated on record that Farmer never came to their ward. A psychiatric resident confirmed the same in a 1987 letter. What was real? 7 years of involuntary commitment, abusive conditions, Farmer later described herself, and a career that never recovered. She won back her legal rights in 1953 by taking her own mother to court and died of esophageal cancer in 1970. The lobotomy was invented. The institutionalization was not. Verdict, mostly false. The most famous part of the story never happened. Gene Tierney was Hollywood's dark-haired ideal in the early 1940s, the face of the 1944 noir masterpiece Laura, an Academy Award nominee. Agatha Christie based a murder mystery around her story. That story was this. In 1943, Tierney was volunteering at the Hollywood Canteen, a wartime venue where stars met servicemen. One evening, a female Marine placed under rubella quarantine slipped past the protocols to meet her favorite actress. She was contagious. Tierney, who was pregnant, never knew. Her daughter Daria was born prematurely on the 15th of October, 1943, weighing just 3 pounds, 2 ounces, deaf, partially blind, and severely cognitively disabled. She would spend most of her life in institutional care. Tierney learned the source of the infection years later when that same fan crossed her path again and cheerfully reminded her of their meeting. The guilt tore Tierney apart. Through the 1950s, she was admitted to 3 psychiatric facilities. At the Institute of Living in Hartford, Connecticut, she received 27 sessions of electroshock therapy. In December 1957, she was found standing on the ledge of her mother's 14th floor New York apartment and was talked to safety by police after 20 minutes. She recovered, remarried, and died of emphysema in Houston in 1991 at 70. Verdict false. No syphilis. One fan's selfishness and a lifetime of grief. Montgomery Clift had 4 Oscar nominations before he was 35 and was considered alongside Marlon Brando and James Dean, one of the most gifted actors of his generation. On the night of the 12th of May 1956, he left a dinner party at Elizabeth Taylor's home in Beverly Hills and drove into the dark on a fog-thick road. His car hit a telephone pole. Taylor climbed into the wreckage and pulled a tooth from his throat before he could choke on it. His cheekbone was shattered, his jaw broken, his face permanently altered. Friends who knew him before and after said the accident split his life in 2. He was the slowest suicide in Hollywood history, one colleague later recalled. In the decade that followed, Clift numbed the pain with alcohol, and Pills struggled to remember his lines on set and continued working on sheer force of will. He made Freud, he made the Misfits opposite Marilyn Monroe. His body deteriorated visibly and fast. He was found dead in his Manhattan apartment on the 23rd of July 1966, aged 45, watching a film on television. His heart had simply stopped. There was no syphilis, no madness. Only a brilliant man, a broken face, and a decade of very quiet self-destruction that everyone around him could see and nobody could stop. Verdict false, the slowest kind of wreck Hollywood ever produced. Judy Garland was 14 years old when she signed her contract with MGM. She would spend the next 15 years being managed, monitored, reshaped, and medicated by one of the most powerful studios in Hollywood history. MGM didn't like her weight. Louis B. Mayer reportedly called her a fat little pig with pigtails. The commissary served her only chicken soup and black coffee when she ordered food. To keep her alert through 8-hour shooting days, studio doctors prescribed amphetamines they called pep pills. To bring her down at night, they gave her barbiturates. By the time she finished filming The Wizard of Oz at 17, Garland was already addicted to both. She later told interviewers that she and Mickey Rooney were woken every 4 hours during productions, given pills pushed back in front of the camera, then knocked out again. "That's the way we worked," she said, "and that's the way we got mixed up." She had her first nervous breakdown by her late 20s. MGM released her in 1950. What followed were decades of failed comebacks, hospitalizations, and suicide attempts, all downstream consequences of a system that began medicating a child before she was old enough to vote. She died of a barbiturate overdose in London on the 22nd of June 1969 at 47. Not syphilis. A studio that started treating a child like a machine at 14. Verdict false. The studio built the damage. Garland lived with it for 30 years. John Gilbert was by the mid-1920s possibly the most famous leading man in the world. He romanced Greta Garbo on screen and oft-starred in The Big Parade and Flesh and the Devil, and commanded a salary that rivaled any star in Hollywood. Then sound arrived, and legend says his voice ended him. Audiences heard it in 1929's His Glorious Night, and supposedly laughed at how high and soft it sounded. That story has been repeated in every Hollywood history book since. Later sound analysis found little actually wrong with his voice. The real story was uglier, a bitter feud with MGM chief Louis B. Mayer, who by multiple accounts wanted Gilbert broken and ensured inferior scripts, reached him after the studio transition. As the good roles dried up, Gilbert drank constantly, and the face that had made him a god began to look worn and old within a few years. A serious heart attack in December 1935 left him badly weakened. A second one at his Bel Air home on the 9th of January 1936 killed him. He was 38, still listed on syphilis myth compilations. Still false. No hidden disease destroyed John Gilbert. A studio feud did, and he drank to ease the damage. Verdict falsy. A broken career, a feud with MGM's most powerful man, and a bottle. Rudolph Valentino. No silent star shone brighter. Rudolph Valentino made women swoon in theaters around the world in The Chic and Blood and Sand. His death in August 1926 shattered his fans so completely that multiple women reportedly took their own lives in grief, and at least 1,000,000 people lined the streets of New York to view his body. What killed him was a burst gastric ulcer combined with a perforated appendix. He collapsed on the 15th of August, 1926, in his suite at the Ambassador Hotel in Manhattan, clutching his stomach. Surgeons at Polyclinic Hospital operated immediately, but infection spread through his abdomen. He died on August 23, at just 31 years old. The medical combination he suffered is now sometimes called Valentino's syndrome in clinical literature. The public, unable to accept that a perforated ulcer could kill their idol, invented wilder explanations, poisoned by a jealous woman shot in secret. A staged seance claiming his ghost had confirmed foul play. His own treating doctors refuted every version. He is still a popular name on syphilis lists. Still false. Verdict false. A perforated ulcer and 8 days of infection. The legend needed something larger than the truth. Vivien Leigh. The official record on Vivien Leigh contains 2 Academy Awards gone with the wind, A Streetcar Named Desire, and one of the most celebrated careers in film history. Taken alone, it is completely incomplete. Leigh had been living with what is now called bipolar disorder since at least the late 1930s. By 1952, Laurence Olivier was so worried he confided his fears to Noel Coward during a holiday in Jamaica. In early 1953, Leigh began filming Elephant Walk on location in Sri Lanka. She became paranoid, stopped sleeping, started hallucinating on set. Most disturbingly, she began slipping mid-conversation into Blanche Dubois from Streetcar, the role she had just finished, unable to stay herself. Paramount replaced her with Elizabeth Taylor. On the flight back to Los Angeles, Lee tried to jump out of the plane. Back in Hollywood, she reportedly screamed streetcar lines for hours until sedated. Olivier had her committed to the Fairdene Northern Asylum in Colston, Surrey, where she received multiple electroconvulsive therapy sessions. When she returned to the stage, audiences reportedly saw burn marks from the paddles on her temples. Olivier filed for divorce in 1960. She died alone in her London flat from tuberculosis on the 8th of July 1967 at 53. Her companion Jack Merivale found her on the floor. 2 Oscars. A bipolar disorder nobody in her era had the tools to treat. A disease that was real documented and never once invented. Verdict true. Bipolar disorder. It never let her go. Some of these stories were invented. One was completely true. But even the lies had something real underneath them. The legend was always messier than the list. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell for more untold stories.